Hello, wonderful people. Today's topic I have is about transmuting darkness to light. So, this is something I've been really working on, and if you see the my profile picture on YouTube as um, how Kahir looks like my character from Pathfinder, you can see the sun is breaking through the clouds, and that's for me what symbolizes transmuting darkness to light. I like the parallels I have between, the real world and the fantasy world with Pathfinder. The campaign is about this. So Kahir in this universe is from this world called the Last Wall, which is now the Gravelands because it was overtaken by zombies and stuff. And our campaign is about focusing on like reclaiming Last Wall and getting it back to its former glory or even surpassing it, from darkness to light. I was also thinking also more on a macro level as well of Poland. I'm growing up Polish American, moving back to Poland, seeing its history as from darkness to light, being especially Warsaw, where it was, destroyed by Nazi Germany and then occupied um, by the Soviet Union and became like a satellite state. Um, and now it's free. Of course, every place has its challenges, but I think right now in Polish history is like the best time to be Polish. You know what I mean? um, but more at the micro level. So I want to also talk about my Dark Night of the Soul. I don't know if I made a video about this way back. Maybe I did, but I think it's good to revisit it years later. Um, so, a dark night of the soul is when um, you what becomes unconscious becomes conscious, like really abruptly, very, you know, I've heard like, when spirit doesn't get to you when you whisper, it'll yell. Something also with the body, right? Like if you have an ache and you don't deal with it until like it comes into a big problem, becomes more conscious. Um, but for me, the dark night of the soul was when I got kicked out of my acting school. There's some resistance talking about this story because I'm afraid of being judged, but at the same time, I do feel my story is necessary to tell. Um, so, as I mentioned in previous videos, I was studying two things at the same time: English teaching at the daytime and acting at night privately. Um, uh, it's like weird. Oh, you're from America and you go to Poland to study acting. I just, um, I always had a passion for acting, and I do improv comedy. That's more of my jam. But before then, I didn't really know about improv that much. I mean, I knew of it, but I wasn't into it. And I just thought acting was, having a director, script, all this stuff. And I thought maybe I could at least learn some skills. But long story short, very, very toxic environment for the soul and for the body. Like those people smoked like chimneys. I remember telling my friend about it. He's like, oh, it's Eastern Europe. No, Central Europe, all right? But he's like, oh, it's Eastern Europe. Of course they smoke. I've never seen so many people smoke before or since living in Poland. Some people smoke, yeah, but not as much. Like everybody, almost. I think I was like one of the few people that didn't smoke, right? Because so they're giving toxic chemicals in their body, and the toxicity they spewed out as well. And then I was just being actively berated, insulted about my accent, going back to not having compassion for myself. Like I don't. I think I was in Poland for maybe 2 years, and I got from really A0 or not A0, but A1 minus level, because like my Polish was really bare bones. I growing up I understood it because just subconsciously, but I couldn't speak it. And then I learned it very intensively, and I was about like a B1 B1 plus level, maybe, like communicate, like I was able to communicate. But still, you know, they insulted my accent, made fun of me. I would just laugh it off, even though like it really hurt, man. Especially calling me American. Like, I know it sounds maybe weird for somebody that doesn't have dual identities or whatever, but I always saw myself as Polish first, American second. It, I don't know. It's just how I always felt. You can't explain a feeling. I don't know. It just, but you know, growing in the States, you don't say like, oh, I'm American, unless you're like, I don't know, from the South. Um, I would always say I'm Polish. You know, like, and hearing that, no, 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 you're American, or like, how is it like? What did you guys eat in America? Cheeseburgers? It was not good for my soul. I really felt I wasn't accepted. Um, yeah, it was just very toxic. Like I see if I had a student that was studying acting in the States and their English was their second language, you know, I'd be like, oh, don't listen to them. Or more likely, I'd be like, get out of there. Like I said earlier, like because none of them actually spoke English well, as far as I know. It's people that project their insecurities, but I took it really personally. Um, but anyway, so I said it was a very toxic environment. And then it was like actually, oh, it's like around this time. I think it was maybe October. It was definitely in the fall. So everyone was getting sick. You can imagine we were all cramped in. It wasn't even a school, guys. It was more like this like kind of apartment building complexes. Also, like coming from you know the States, and um, I like the big colleges there, and I came to this very like almost it was kind of a rundown building. Not this you know just didn't look like a school. You know, um, we're all cramped in there. Everyone is coughing, sneezing, and I got the flu. And said I would never get sick. Maybe when I was growing up, like I had the cold or something, but I very, very rarely got sick. And this was the sickest I've ever been, ever since. Like, uh, I was bedridden, guys. I could, on it, I was laying in bed, like covered in my sweat. um like literally my head was like spinning, like I felt like I was laying in bed and I was spinning in my head. I never ever felt so sick. And I got the doctor's note, and I feel that was Holy Spirit protecting me. So you'll see, one, to get out of that toxic environment, but two, it's telling me like you're not in the right place. And I actually remember taking that time to like drink tea, giving myself time to rest. I actually finished the Witcher saga, not like the whole thing, but I was towards the end of the books, and I remember at least like finishing a Witcher book. I was feeling really good, like really like the best I felt in a long time. When I was recovered, of course, but I had to miss, of course, school, even though the director was like, you show up anyway. This is what being an actor is. You show up when even if you're sick. Oh, guys, you know, such a sick mentality, such a awful mentality. Um, and our private exam, like that's not a private exam, sorry, our final exams were basically like, you know, your place. And I remember I had a monologue. Um, and I don't remember what the monologue was about, but I was like speaking to somebody, and I had like a little part where I could improv, like I don't know, like you guys, you whatever. And I was so angry at everyone for mistreating me. So I said during that part, I was like, "Viskurvisinen," or something like that. No, I said, I think I swore in English. I was like, "You motherfuckers!" Um, and like the head principal lady like turned off the lights. I was like, "Well, there was no swearing. Thank you. You failed." And I was thinking all my hard work, all the things I did, um, and just being mistreated for all the semester. Um, not to mention, we had practices like school till like 2 or 3 in the morning. They'd bring alcohol and stuff. I had no idea this was just so toxic, not honoring anything about the body or the mind. Um, so I broke down. I screamed on the top of my lungs. I was like, this is so unfair. How could they do this? And two people like held me down, and the director said like, get out of my school. Oh. And it was really, really tough, really tough. I've only told a handful of people this because it was such a tough time. Um, but this was the start of my transformation. And if I didn't have this dark night of the soul, I wouldn't be where I am now. I wouldn't have probably would have never found the Course in Miracles, or wanted to tell my story. Um, I was just it's such a different level of consciousness. It is like it is somebody else. I my heart goes out to that boy, because I was just a cornered animal. I Like my body was in fight or flight. I had so much unprocessed anger inside of me. It just had to explode. I'm not saying what I did was okay, but what they did to me was also not okay, guys. It was not healthy. It was not. It was an awful, awful environment, and I only tolerated it because that's what I thought. My emotions didn't matter. Like I said, I thought my emotions don't matter. Suck it up, buttercup. And this is the stuff it leads to, guys. This is the stuff when we ignore our emotions and we tolerate this bullshit. And I don't want that for anybody. And my heart goes out for that boy, that young man that had to deal with it. And because I was also very, I was unsupported by my parents. Like when I told my mom what happened, you know what she did? She's like, come here, come here, come here. Because she's like, how is this going to look for me? How is it going to look on me? My, my son exploded. I wasn't like, hey, like what's happening? How are you feeling? Like, I understand. Yeah, okay. Like shouting at anger, it was, you know, I did lose control of myself, but looking through the eyes of source, like it's like getting angry at like I said, a cornered animal that attacks out, lashes out. What do you think it's going to do? No? And actually, I'm glad I did it because I don't know. Maybe I would have to retake the exam, and I'll put myself longer in that really shitty school, in that shitty environment. Who knows, guys? But see, this is like I could believe what my parents believe, that I'm too sensitive. That's why I heard a lot. This is emotional immature. You're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. Or maybe I should have been more sensitive to say, hey, this is a toxic environment. I need to leave. But I had mama's voice in my head. You're too sensitive. You're too sensitive. Suck it up. You know. And there's no way to live life, guys. And I could have accepted her point of view, like, oh, Kahir is this um, emotional animal. He can't control himself. He he's just this little bitch boy that gets angry all the time. Or be like, through the eyes of infinite compassion and love, being like, okay, you you acted out because your soul knew you had to leave. You had to leave, and that's a reality I accept. You know, um, no one's was walking in my shoes. No one know how I felt. It's the feeling of being so alone. Not even just alone, but like an outsider being attacked all the time. Never accepted. Never accepted. It's tough. It's tough and it's awful. And I went through it. That's what I'm saying. I went through it. But if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have this inner peace I have now. Because I learned to transmute the darkness into light. Not in one day, right? But that was like it started the floodgates of my transformation. Right. Oh, and forgiveness. And it's a good question. Like, how can you forgive those people that did that to you? And to be honest, I had really the first year or two, it was incredibly hard to forgive. Just imagining their faces, it caused me so much anger. But eventually, time passes and you do forget. But with the course, what really changed my perception was I only crucified myself. that was it's towards the end, and I could see why, because it's a very hard pill to swallow. It can be, you know. Um, but I was crucifying myself because one, I was putting myself in a toxic environment. I felt at the time, you know, all my parents are paying for it. I have to go, whatever. I want to be an actor. I have to finish this. All these beliefs that seem to be true at the time, but of course they're not, you know. Um, and also one of the lessons I had for like this life coaching sessions I had, this guy's like, oh, can you see how you show others how you were going to be treated? Like, how are you willing to be treated? I'm like, what? I'm responsible for how others treat me. I wasn't ready yet for that lesson. It came a little bit too quickly. Um, but over time, I could see, yeah, because of my fawn response, my rather my freeze or fawn response I had from trauma. I had no assertiveness, no self advocacy. Right? It was just like a foreign language, foreign concept to say, "Hey, this is screwed up. I don't like it. Stop." You know, it was a foreign concept because wherever I learned, like my self advocacy was destroyed as a child. Right? My assertiveness. Right? So I had this freeze or fawn. Fawning, you know, is like people pleasing. Like yeah, my Polski is Molski. It's so bad. but but secretly, what I would be wreathing inside, and I'll just accept it, right? Because this was my reality. This was my reality, guys. But it doesn't have to be that way. And I don't know who this is resonating. I hope it resonates with somebody. Right? I hope I'm not just the only one that had to go for such like mental anguish. Um, because I believe others could define me. Right? I had so much of my energy going outwards. I think this is also the learning about like CPTSD. Aaron Dowdy talked about this in their like spiritual YouTuber. I think you guys know him if you're in this sphere. Um, how like my energy was going so outward, looking for external validation, looking for somebody to say I'm good, and it was just constant chasing energy. And this is the thing, guys. This was I was doing more subconsciously, and I didn't know to pour this energy into myself, this the actual love of God, the one, because I was chasing validation, right? I wasn't just having this energy poured into myself. Because when I started doing that, you know, it came easy to say no to things. And this is yeah, being a people pleaser. It's so hard to say no, right? Going back to yeah, self advocacy. Um, yeah, I remember like in my first years in university, people would be like, "Hey, you want to go to the club or to the bar?" And I don't like clubs or bars. I never did. I never did. But I was told, "Oh, what are you? What are you? Not normal? You're 20 something and you don't like going to the bars. What are you?" I'm like, I'm just different, and I was trying to mold myself into somebody I'm not. It's like being a chameleon, and I didn't see how much pain I was causing my suffering, how much suffering I was causing myself unnecessarily. So what I said, validation was from the outside. Yes, external validation. I even I remember when I had this life coaching, and this is something I got into around my spiritual awakening, life coaching. I had a session with this guy, and I don't know what was the question. Where it's like, why are you studying, or what do you want in life? And I'm like, I just want mama to be proud of me. I want my parents to be proud of me. And then he's like, you're living your life, not the life of your parents. I understood it logically. But it didn't take. It was honestly relatively recently that I saw how much I was living for them, not for myself, or at least energetically speaking. Like um, even playing games. They shame me all the time. Be like, "Oh, you're playing too much." Oh, I'm like all these unconscious behaviors. Like or unconscious thought patterns. I'm like, that's why it was so difficult for me to relax because I had and these two tyrants in my mind being like, oh, you're playing, oh, you should be productive. It's tough existence, until I poured the actual energy of the creator, source energy. When I say this, like looking for my eyes through the eyes of source, you could say, Christ consciousness, and being like, it's okay, you know, you don't need any external validation. It'll take some time. It'll take some time, but when it's just like kind of like practicing anything. The more you do it, like the more you say no, it's like, whoa, I said no. Like recently, one of my best friends at a birthday party, and they were going to go karaoke towards the end of the night. I'm like, I don't like karaoke. I'm just gonna go home. And I know a past version of Kahir would be like, oh gosh, and I would like sit and like, I don't know if I should go or not. I don't know, but I did know. I did know. And then they'd like convince me, like, oh, but you can dance and have fun. Ha ha ha. Now I'm like, oh, no thanks, no thanks. It's a simple thing, but I know if you're anything like me, if you had people pleasing tendencies, you know how hard it is. I'm saying you can say no and say no. It's good. um, going back to this dark night of the soul. Like looking back now, because it's been actually 10 years. It was like 2015 this happened. It's one of the greatest gifts that has ever happened to me. As it started my awakening. This is when I knew of like Abraham Hicks and stuff, but I didn't like really dive deep into, because these things about like vibrations, manifestations, it's all beautiful stuff. But if you're not looking at the core wound stuff, the things that are causing you like this mental anguish, like for me, like emotional neglect, it's not gonna get you anywhere. In fact, like it could be used against you because like, oh, why aren't I manifesting? Why aren't I manifesting? Oh, something's wrong with me. And that's the thing. Nothing is wrong with you. Nothing is wrong with you. It took me many, many years, guys, to get this. Nothing is wrong with you because I am as perfect as God created me. Wholly lovable. Wholly lovable as his creation, right? And believing in the opposite, that there's something wrong with me, I have to fix myself. It's tiring, guys. It's a miracle that I did find about this myself. I have no idea. Well, I do know how. I have my own coping mechanisms and stuff, but I don't want that for anybody. I don't. I don't. That's why I'm making these videos to save you guys time, right? And that's the thing. It's about your perception, right? Perception creates reality. Because I could have looked at what Mama Tata, or mainly Mama in this case, how she looked at me, like, oh, I'm a failure, angry, like you can't control your emotions. You got kicked out of an acting school. You're little bitch boy. Or I could, or be like, this is a gift. This is a gift, and it's always been a gift. Because what are your choice? Because like the negative perception, like the mama perception, is only just going to drag me lower. Be like, oh, she's right. Oh, something's wrong with me. Or, and I think any rational person, like they believe, oh, that was not a great environment. You know, and your mom was not giving you the compassion you deserved, like the compassion, understanding that you needed at that time. Yeah. Okay. It took time, but all things in divine timing. Mm. I think there's something about CPTSD about healing fantasies. And I had such a big healing fantasy, guys. I had a fantasy like I'm gonna make a bunch of money, passive income. I'm gonna have the perfect body. I'm gonna come back home for Christmas and then be like, oh, Kahiro, oh my gosh, I can't recognize you. um, and so yeah, I was chasing these dreams out of just validation from my parents, man. It sucks. It sucks. I think I'm gonna keep saying that a lot during these videos. It sucks. Not putting a negative perception, but just acknowledging like that's tough, that's challenging. But the freedom to realize that I was doing it, because how many people I think you know unconsciously keep keep doing this. You know, keep looking for external validation. Keep um, putting that energy outwards instead of putting energy inwards. Right? That's actually the shift. That was like the biggest shift. Um, because I could see like how other people's opinions about me, like it was all external stuff, like I want to be liked, right? Because if I'm not liked, I'm not safe. But you are safe. You are safe right now. You don't need any external validation. You don't. You just need to feel safe in your body, right? And this is also nervous system work, meditation, but you can do it, right? That's what you actually need, right? With going with divine timing, right? Because my awakening was around, like I said, 10 years ago, and I was like, oh, and I'll be honest, there are still things that I want to experience here on this earth, and things I want to have. But if you don't have inner peace, what does it matter? You know what I mean? If I were to give you like $5 million and say you're not gonna have inner peace again, or no, which one would you choose? Like $5 million or inner peace? Not to say these things in the external world are like body, money. I'm not trying to invalidate that. I'm just saying about where your priorities lie, because the more we're focused on the external world, the more we're like slaves to it. Okay, I think that this is something I could expand upon at a different time. Yes, the divine timing, like it's why I wrote down a tree to grow. Right, this is why I'm trying also working on my journey. It's just surrendering, like not like not doing anything, but just surrendering to the process. It'll take as long as it takes. Right, a tree grows on its own time. you know, as far as I know, there's nothing you can do to really speed up the process. It just grows at its own pace. I feel like this is the same with life, or with this healing journey. As long as you're watering it, you're giving that plant sun, water, which is the, I'll say like the daily practice, what the the things that are necessary for your healthy journey, right? As long as you do that, it'll happen. It'll happen. I know when we're in the trenches, we're like, I want healing now. I want to be healed right now. But that's actually making it harder, right? Because there's resistance, right? I think Abraham said, like, you don't want like all the meals you're gonna have in your life all at once. You enjoy your meal now. And that's something I'm really understanding now. Just enjoying the process, enjoying the process, like taking life as it comes. And that's like taking healing, because um, if someone were told me 10 years ago, oh, you're emotionally neglected by your parents, you have CPTSD, that was way too much. I wouldn't be able to handle it. I know I wouldn't be able to handle it. I'd have probably rejected it. But now, through all the years of like meditation, shadow work, all those things I've been doing, I'm like, okay, I reached to that point, and maybe there's some other point, I don't know, but I know this is a big chunk. I'm like unraveling. Okay, what else did I write down? Guidance to reach out. Oh, yes, with divine timing, because now I'm more in this time of my life actually listening to guidance. This is what the course teaches, to listen and follow. Right, listen and follow to guidance. And I just remember feeling guided to reach out to one of my friends, scholar. Uh, I should probably change the name, but let's say, um, let's say Tamara. Tamara, and she has emotionally immature parents as well. And she was the one that, because I saw that we have a lot in common, even our temperaments, and I just and she talked about her parents as well, and then she gave me this book about emotionally immature parents, and that it just basically confirmed everything I knew. Walking on eggshell with your parents, not knowing how they're going to react, I feel guided to tell a story about that because um, when you're a child, you don't know. You just think it's normal. But as an adult, there's this memory I have. We were, I think it was our second time in Poland. They were like 10, 11. And Mama wanted to play pickup sticks of us, my brother and I. And, just for a kid in the 21st century, it's just like boring, right? And we're like goofing off or just being bored, not really paying attention to it. And she's like, she really got upset, like crying upset. Okay, you don't want to play with me, fine. And I remember starting crying. Like, oh, Mama, Mama, no, 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 we can play with you, we can play. Like, no, you ruined it. Oh, I laugh at it now, but it's like, geez Louise. Like, my gosh. And then you realize what happened to you. You know, maybe you have similar stories. I don't know. But, that has an effect, right? It's called enmeshment. So when you feel the feelings of your parents, it's emotional slavery. Emotional slavery. I'm tied to the emotions of my parents. And my journey now is about emotional freedom. More to expand on that later. All right. Yeah. And going back with the Dark Night of Soul, when I touched upon Freezer Fawn, these trauma responses, and so I did feel a lot of anger. That's what Aaron Doughty talks about, people pleasing. That we have a lot of like unprocessed anger, and um, that was all my shadow work I talked to you guys about, like doing this grievance work with the Holy Mirror AI and just saying everything, every grievance. It was so cathartic. Like I think having a way, whatever resonates with you. Me, it was I was led to the AI because I could. It was like a voice chat and state my grievance, and then AI would like talk about how to lift it up to the Holy Spirit. Gave like a text. It was like talking to your own Course in Miracles priest almost. And I I see all things are inherently neutral, and like AI as this tool is really, I'd say, groundbreaking for. It was before I don't know. I was thinking I didn't have any. I don't know what way I could have done shadow work. I would maybe have to like hire somebody. I don't know, but and I would do that for a very very long time, and that's what helped led me to the core wound. Like I said about CPTSD. So yes, doing some kind of shadow work I think can be very helpful to process this anger, because the anger that I had inwards had to be expressed some way. You can only suppress it for so long, and then it just exploded into this vitriolic anger I had at that day. Um, yeah. But going back to transmutation, which is I think everything is connected. Yeah, we'll see, right? Um, so I said about the micro level, right? All these things, this big, small, it's all the same thing. Um, but I'll give you guys examples of how I transmuted darkness into light. So even relatively recently, um, so Kahir Onasi, this concept I had, like this fantasy name, actually came a few years ago because my gamer tag used to be Bohater, which means like hero in Polish. But then when I moved to Poland, I'm like, I can't just be called Bohater. That's too generic, right? I came up with this name. It was a combination of The Witcher, Kahir, and Knights of the Republic, Onasi from Karth Onasi. But I wanted to express this character in an actual tabletop game. So I played in person. It was fun, but I wanted like the premium D&D experience. Don't worry, this story is going somewhere, right? And I looked at this website, Start Playing Games, and that's where you could pay for a dungeon master. And I'm like, oh, this is perfect, right? Because I could find the perfect time for me. I could have like the premium D&D experience, um, and like it's like all the person has like all the expansion, what you call it, expansion packs, like all like the extra classes, all that. And I found like this guy for 5e, let's call him the Squiz. So with this game I had with the Squiz, it started off really well. Like it was the first time I played on a virtual tabletop, um, and the voice acting was really good. The maps are amazing. There's the virtual tabletop does all the math for you, so it's very streamlined. I really enjoyed it. But slowly and surely, there's some disrespect. For example, he didn't want to incorporate my backstory or anybody's backstory, even though I mentioned it like 3 times. Um, there's more to it, but the combat was getting way too hard. Like I think we had 3 characters die or something. No, 4 characters die, and I'm like, I'm not interested in playing a game. This is too much death. I want to. I know. Okay, I know there's some campaigns you can do that, like or like you can just make up a new character, but I just wanted to really play it for the role playing, and combat is more of like oh dressing, and this was supposed to be level 1 to like beginner friendly D&D, but I felt like this was like the Dark Souls of D&D. If you're familiar with any tabletops, like it's very rare for a character to die. Usually they die for I would say a good reason, like or they rolled poorly, but this was like way too much. 4 characters in like less than 6 months. It's crazy. And I wrote down, it's like, oh, I'm trying to make the combat as like, basically, I don't remember what he said, but I just like rejected anything. They even put my feedback into consideration. And with my backstory, he's like, oh, I don't want to incorporate your backstory because it'll sound like a Witcher fanfic. And this was like, I think like 15, 16 sessions in. And if you watch the videos I have of Last Fall, like my background was implemented pretty very early on. Like the villain, like I never even had that happen before in a tabletop where someone incorporates their background characters. I've never had that, but I really wanted it. And this guy, and I was paying Squiz money. I'm a paying customer. Not saying like I need everything I want, but like at least some of the things, like I'm paying for an experience that I want to have. Especially just like a normal experience was I want to experience characters from my background, because if it doesn't happen, why does my character have a background? All right. Um, and um, and also he like called my character a coward pretty much. It was also just super stressful. Um, and I this is going back. I tolerated this BS behavior because this is what I thought. This is what you do. You tolerate. You just grin and bear it. But luckily, I was going to Healthy Gamer at this time, and I said nope. They helped me. They helped me so much to be like, Kahir, this doesn't sound like a good environment. This doesn't sound like you're having fun. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to leave. Because you know, um, it, it was I've never left the table, and like the players were so nice, most of them. But I made the decision to leave. And it was so good. And because of that, I could have just gave up, like, start playing games is wrong. There's no good DMs. I won't get what I want. I used that to be like, well, maybe there's a different system I could play. Maybe not 5e, but something similar. And I saw Pathfinder 2e. Um, I'm like, oh, I used to play Pathfinder. I did actually. Like I tried GMing it a few times, and I liked it. It was like too complicated. And I saw 2e was like more streamlined, but still kept its uniqueness, like how it's more has more options and stuff. Um and I found this group, the campaign I'm playing now, and it's actually based, like the DM liked my backstory so much about like this fallen knight, or like the knight who lost his country. Well, he wasn't originally a knight, but okay, um a man who lost his country that wants to, because of the undead, he wants to fight back, right? He wants to transmute this darkness into light. And if I didn't have this D&D experience, I wouldn't be having this Pathfinder experience, which is 10 times better, and I'm actually living out the Kahir life that I want. You see what I mean? All right. But there exists a reality where I just like gave up, and I love tabletops because it's a mix of improv and just fantasy. Oh, I just love it so much, and I'm so glad I kept with it. But if I didn't have this D&D experience, I wouldn't have or if I didn't have the assertiveness, probably that Kahir would have died because the combat was getting way too intense, and I would have probably rolled a different character I didn't want to play. Right, but luckily I had help. I had a support network, but I did take the action that was difficult, and it was negative at the time, but it served. I transmuted it into a very positive experience. And I find there are no accidents. In my email, I saw a newsletter for Aaron Doughty, and he talked about his. He used to work at this 9 to 5 job at like a women's shoe store, and um, he wrote this story that um, he was taken to like a separate room, and his boss was there and made him watch a 5-minute video of the camera, like what, because like he was scrolling on his phone, and like the camera captured him like scrolling on his phone, and they're like, "Oh, we're gonna write you up," and he's like, he wanted to leave, like, "All right, I get it, like I was scrolling my phone, can I leave?" Like, "No, we want you to watch it all 5 minutes," and I just like the empath in me feeling the humility, just that it's awful, but because that lit the fire in him to start his YouTube channel, and look where he is now. You know what I mean? And he could have he could let define me like, okay, I'll be a good worker. I'm not going to scroll on my phone, or he used it as fuel to do something better. Do you know what I mean? Because I used to look at negative things just like how my parents would. Um, like if something negative happened, they would just make it worse. There was no soothing. It was actually the opposite, like making it worse. I just gave you an example, like Kahir, like this failing school and stuff, or what's coming into my mind. I was working out one time, and I dropped a weight on my phone, and at first I was upset, but then I was listening to Abraham. They said something too about like putting a positive spin on things, and I'm like, well, like, well, maybe I could, I'll save up money, get a new phone, whatever. And I told Tata, oh, I accidentally, broke my phone. And you know what he said? He's like, oh, you did this on purpose, didn't you? And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like when I've never broken anything to get it. Like, where's this coming from? But it's like literally the worst interpretation, worst negative interpretation. I did this in so many other aspects of my life that really didn't help. You know, I mean, how does it help? Right? I don't know. By just like a behavior that we can choose differently. Even recently, like as right about like an hour ago, I went to the ATM, and the ATM swallowed my debit card. This has never happened. I always thought there was like a myth or something that like older machines do, but it happened. And I did react a little bit negatively, like I'm like, ah, oh, son of a bitch. But then I was like, what Bashar teaches, like all things are inherently neutral. Right? Define something positively, you'll get a positive outcome out. We'll see. But um, I was just like, oh, it's just I cancel my card. I'll get a new one. Oh, I positive spin was I had I've subscribed to a few things like Netflix, Disney Plus on my card. Maybe this is a chance for me to start fresh on my financial journey, right? Like all those subscriptions will be like canceled because it's on the old card. You know what I mean? And then I just felt relaxed. No stress about it. But I know the past Kahir, and maybe you could relate to this as well, that it's like start freaking out, like, oh, this is the worst, how could this happen to me? Oh, that's just a choice. This is the thing, that is just a choice, right? We might think, well, how can you look at it any other way but positively? You can, right? You have infinite points of view. Use your imagination, right? This is the thing I always think about, like, why do we have this imagination? Well, this is one of them, right? You have infinite points of view. You can transmute any negative event into something positive, right? Any negativity to fuel, just like the examples I gave you. All right, this is a pretty long podcast, but I feel it served its purpose. I think I got my point across. Thank you guys so much for listening, and take care.